Jaba Rajguru, Professor, Department of Anatomy, Pharyngeal Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Vadodara. Today in this practical session, we will be taking at one of the models of pharyngeal arches. So this is the model of the developing embryo at fourth week of gestation, rather at the beginning of the fourth week of gestation, where the folding is taking place. The head fold has been formed, the tail fold also has been formed. This is the head fold, okay, and over the head fold you can see a bulge, okay. This bulge is because of heaping up of mesoderm over it, and for that reason it is known as the frontal prominence, and it is over this area where our forehead will be formed, okay. So now this is the head fold I told you, which will give rise to the frontal prominence. The neck has not been formed as of now, and down below will be the pericardial sac. The neck will be formed, over here. The neck will be formed between the head bulge and the pericardial sac. Clear? So now over here you are seeing these two, okay, bulges. One bulge is here, there is another bulge. This where 2 is written, these are the lens placard. Placard means thickening of epithelium. In this case it is thickening of the ectoderm. It will give rise to lens later on. These blue ones you are seeing, this is the nasal placard. This is thickening of ectoderm, and here future nose will develop. Over here you are seeing a depression where 4 is written, okay. This is the stomatodium. It is also known as stomodium, referred like this in many books, okay. So it lies between the head bulge and the pericardial sac, and over here the future mouth will develop. Clear? Now down below you are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, rod-like thickenings. These rod-like thickenings, okay, are made of mesoderm, and they are known as pharyngeal arches, okay. So the first pharyngeal arch, it develops at the beginning of the fourth week of development, and later on, okay, more 5 are added, but here, so there should be 6, but here there are only 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is it so? Because the fifth pharyngeal arch disappears. Clear? The first arch is known as the mandibular arch. This mandibular arch, okay, will give rise, or rather it will bifurcate into 2 processes. One is the mandibular process, and the another one will be the maxillary process, which you can see here. So before we go to the other pharyngeal arches, I think all of you know that these pharyngeal arches are thickening of mesoderm. So this is a pharyngeal arch. It is lined on the outside by ectoderm and on the inside by endoderm. Clear? So now each arch, okay, has a dedicated skeletal component. It has an arterial component and a nerve. You can see over here the skeletal component, this one, and the nerve over here. Clear? The first arch is known as the mandibular arch. The second arch is also known as the second arch or the hyoid arch. The other arches do not have such names. Before proceeding further, let me tell you that this is the floor of the primitive pharynx. Okay. So the nerve of the first arch is the cranial nerve 5, mainly the mandibular division, okay. So all the muscles derived from it are supplied by the mandibular nerve. The muscles which are derived from this arch are mainly the muscles of mastication, namely the temporalis, masseter, medial and lateral pterygoid, mylohyoid, anterior belly of digastric, tensor belli palatini and tensor tympani. Now you can see this blue one, it is the cartilaginous component, okay. So it will give rise to the premaxilla, maxilla, zygomatic bone, part of temporal bone, Meckel's cartilage, mandible, malleus and incus. Also, anterior ligament of malleus and sphenomandibular ligament is derived from it. The second arch is also called the hyoid arch. Okay. So the cartilaginous component is, or the cartilage is also known as the Richard's cartilage. Clear? This blue one. The nerve is the facial nerve. Okay. The muscles derived from the somatic mesoderm of this arch are the muscles of facial expression, buccinator, auricularis, occipitofrontalis, platysma, orbicularis oris, orbicularis oculi, posterior belly of digastric, stylohyoid and stapedius. Now just note the anterior belly of digastric is supplied by the nerve of the first arch. Okay, that is the mandibular nerve, whereas the posterior belly is supplied by the facial nerve. Clear? The skeletal components or the bones which are derived from the cartilage are the stapes, the styloid process, lesser cornu of hyoid bone, part of body of hyoid, and the ligament which is derived is the stylohyoid ligament. Now just a point to remember is that the stylomandibular ligament, okay, though the name is similar, is not derived from the second arch. It is the stylomandibular ligament. It is a thickening of deep cervical fascia. Now comes the turn of the third arch. The third arch does not have any such names. It is known as the third arch only. It is the nerve of this arch is the glossopharyngeal nerve. The muscle supplied or muscle derived from it is the stylopharyngeus muscle, and the skeletal components derived from it are the greater cornu and the lower part of the body of the hyoid bone. As I already told you, there are initially 6 arches and later on only 5 remains. Now the fourth arch. The fourth arch is supplied by the superior laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve, and the sixth arch is supplied by the recurrent laryngeal branch also of the vagus nerve. Now these 2 arches, they give rise to the muscles, or these muscles, the cricothyroid, levator palatii, constrictors of pharynx and intrinsic muscles of larynx are derived from these arches. Clear? And the skeletal components which are derived from the fourth and the sixth arch are the laryngeal cartilages, namely the thyroid, cricoid, arytenoid, corniculate and the cuneiform. Now also here we can see there are 2 swellings. These are known as the lingual swellings, and just see over here in relation to the first arch only, lingual swellings, this is the tuberculum impar. They take part in formation of the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Now this is the foramen cecum. The foramen cecum is the part which remains after the thyroglossal duct disappears. So it is what you can say, it is not a scar tissue, but it is the remnant of the origin of the thyroglossal duct. Now lower down we can see a big swelling in relation to the second, third and the fourth arch. This is known as the hypobranchial eminence. The cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence goes to the formation of the epiglottis, whereas the cranial part goes to the formation of the posterior most part of the tongue, whereas the lowermost part goes to the formation of the epiglottis. Down below we can see the laryngeal inlet, and it is here where the esophagus will develop. So this is the primitive floor of the primitive pharynx. So, and it is lined by endoderm. Thank you.